2023 meeting of the Ann Arbor Historic District Commission. This meeting is being held in person and electronically via Zoom. Members of the public who would like to comment on hearings other matters may do so via telephone only. To speak during any of the public comment opportunities, please call 888-788-0099 and enter meeting ID 965-3669-9762. This information is also available on the published agenda, the public notices section of the city website, and on the broadcast of this meeting on CTN Channel 16, AT&T Channel 99, and online at www.a2gov/watchctn. All right, Ms. Thatcher, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Quijano. Commissioner White.
Here.
Commissioner Willis.
Here.
Commissioner Epperson.
Here.
Commissioner Fortner. Here. Commissioner Rockland.
Here.
Commissioner Ross.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. And on to approval of the agenda. Are there any additions, deletions, or changes to tonight's agenda?
No.
Okay. Seeing none, the agenda is approved as presented. On to item D, public comment. This is an opportunity for persons to speak for up to 3 minutes about an issue that is not listed as a public hearing on this agenda. To comment on such other preservation matters, please call 888-788-0099 and enter meeting ID 965-3669-9762. City staff will select callers that have raised their hand one by one using the last 3 digits of your phone number. In order to electronically raise your hand, to indicate your desire to speak, please press *9 on your phone. You will hear an automated announcement that the host is allowing you to speak. Ms. Thatcher, do we have any callers?
We do. I'm going to promote the caller whose number ends in 345. Caller 345, you can unmute.
Hi, this is Kitty Kahn. I live at 515 Cross Street. I'm calling to talk about the most recent meeting of the City Planning Commission just this past Tuesday. They were discussing the city's plans for 415 West Washington. The Planning Commission passed unanimously rezoning the site from PL, public land, to PUD, planned unit development. There was a presentation by Smith Group, once again showing the dense, out-of-scale development, 70 feet tall with 157 residential units, that the city would like to place there after they demolish the existing historic buildings. In a recent update by City Administrator Dahoney, he said, quote, "The PUD proposal includes a building up to 70 feet in height and up to 200% FAR with a building massing that meets the height and setback delineations that have been developed in conjunction with the community and the HDC," unquote. As I recall, neither the community nor the HDC were in favor of this development option, so I was surprised to read Mr. Dahoney's memo. Also, at Tuesday's Planning Commission meeting, I was very surprised that there was absolutely no discussion at all about the site being in a historic district. At one point, during a discussion about setbacks, one of the commissioners even said that the houses near the site on West Washington might be remodeled in the future so they are closer to the street. It appears she doesn't realize those houses are in a historic district and therefore could not be remodeled in that way. I really hope you are all paying attention to what is happening at 415 West Washington. I'm counting on you to make the city stick to the rules. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, I'm going to promote the caller ending in 534. Caller 534, you can go ahead.
Hello.
This is Tom Stolberg calling from my car. Former HCC commissioner, served with a few of you, former chair. So I was on the commission for 6 years, chair for 2. Very familiar with this 415 West Washington site. Some groups walked us through there with ideas they had for redevelopment. There was a Mark Bruder report, and we were asked to determine whether the site was contributing or not. We did conclude and vote that it was contributing. Then later on, the HCC was asked whether or not to approve demolition of the structures, which it did approve. I was no longer at the HCC at that time. I likely would have voted along with the majority and allowed demolition as you did. But now we have redevelopment of the site. And I'm not happy about how the process is going. You're going to hear a lot about competing interests for this site. But your role is to review it under the criteria that the reviews the rules that you have to follow. And one of the things I've liked about the HCC, my time on it and before and this, is how the HCC reports and discussions do a very good job of sticking to the specific criteria that you're supposed to evaluate projects by, as opposed to other things. I think the ZBA does a pretty good job of that as well. But I think City Council and Planning Commission do a very poor job of that, often not following the criteria laid out in our UDC, Unified Development Code, in their evaluation of various projects, and relying instead on various speeches and narratives. So I want to compliment the HCC, and I want to compliment Jill Thatcher for the reports that she writes, and everybody sticking to the criteria that you're supposed to in evaluating it. And I think that's going to come in to play very importantly when 415 West Washington is brought before you, and people are going to mention some pressures about various competing interests. It is in a floodplain, almost the entire site. There was an issue of wanting to develop certain city-owned sites for affordable housing. This scored very poorly for that for various reasons. We will get into those reasons later. And then there's a serious environmental cleanup issue there as well. So there are competing interests, but the HCC should be reviewing it from the standpoint that the HCC reviews projects. So I hope you keep that in mind. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
If anyone else is waiting to talk at public commentary, please hit *9 on your phone to raise your hand. Okay, I think that's it.
Okay. There are no other callers indicating for public comment, so I will now close.
Oh, wait. I thought that was going to happen. We got a couple more.
Okay.
All right, caller ending in 012, I'm allowing you to talk. You can unmute and go ahead.
Hi, this is Muffin McKenzie. I'm at 217 3rd Street. I too wanted to call about the meeting the other evening. I was shocked at the discussion that seemed to completely ignore the historic district. And I think both the previous callers have addressed what I wanted to address as well. But it just seems like the whole thing has been a bit backwards, that new developments in the historic district are supposed to be designed to fit into the district. And this one just has started from a completely different perspective, trying to meet different people's agendas without taking into consideration the historic district and the neighbors around it. And I just really implore you all to take a good look at this and really support the historic district's rules and Yeah, I guess I just really wanted also to thank you for all of your hard work, because I'm sure this is a complicated situation, but it just seems like it's going to end up being this gigantic wall that separates the historic houses from the downtown area, and it just does not fit into the intention of what the historic district was originally created for. So thank you very much, and thank you for all of your good work.
Thank you.
Caller ending in 464.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
I never
Yep.
know if I'm on. Oh, thanks. Thank you so much. My name is Linda Brower. I live at 421 3rd Street, which is between William and Jefferson. So I watched the Planning Commission meeting last night too, earlier this week, where Smith's Group and the city presented their latest version of the 415 site. They presented their concept plan. I really think the height and mass remains terribly out of scale for the neighborhood. At 70 feet, it exceeds even B2 zoning. I don't think it's right for the neighborhood, and I'm concerned that the materials state that their plan meets the height and setback delineations that were developed. And I quote, in conjunction with the community and the HDC, I think that's misleading. I've attended many community meetings and all the Zoom webinars on this project, and I looked at the survey results, and it's clear that the vast majority of the community preferred a less intense development when presented with three options. So I don't know why they keep saying that. Anyway, I watched your previous work sessions also where this project was presented, and I'm, based on what they're saying now, I'm concerned that they take silence and polite questions as support. You know, like when they come, I know they're not asking you to vote on anything, but because it's a work session and they just, want to show you what they're doing and get some feedback. But I'm hoping that when they next present this plan, that you will maybe give them some more direction into what would actually be more in keeping with the historic district guidelines. Because I worry that after, they spend more and more money and consulting time on a plan that should be rejected. So I wanted to say that. And then the other thing, just briefly, I want to tell you about, there was a local builder several years ago who had a very exciting creative vision for this site. And he ran it by a bunch of people in the neighborhood. He lives in the neighborhood, in fact. He lives I think I won't say where because I want to protect his privacy, but he lives very close to the Y. And he has already rehabbed an amazing historical building in the neighborhood, like a big one, and he just did a beautiful job. And he had this wonderful vision, and he wanted to discuss it with the city, but the city gave him a cold shoulder because they were already working with Smith's Group on this other thing. But I want to just tell you what this concept is so that maybe you can keep it in the back of your mind as something that maybe might happen at this place at some point. He was going to keep the old building, the contributing structure. He was going to open up the first floor, and so it would be open on stilts, appropriate for the floodplain so water can flow through. He was going to add a story on the top and have office on the first floor and then a residential on the top, and he was going to keep some of the sheds and convert them into artist studios and little shops. So
30
it would be a
seconds,
little
caller.
taller than it is now, but, there'd be artist studios and shops, and we'd get to, replace the artist space that we lost when Performance Network was demolished, over there to make way for the Y. And we'd have more little shops in the neighborhood, and most of it would be green open space because obviously he'd remediate it and get rid of the gravel, and all of that would be open green space. And it was just so appropriate for the Old West Side. It would just fit in so well. And he's got a track record. So I just want to give you that vision so that you'll know that there are alternatives if what the city is currently proposing gets rejected, which I hope it will. Anyway, thank you so much for listening. I know you guys have a really hard job, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all of the callers in the queue. I don't see anyone in council chambers
Okay.
who's coming up.
There are no more callers for public comment. Thank you for everyone who did call in on public comment. It's very much appreciated whenever we have people give their feedback to the commission. So thank you. I will now move on to item E, unfinished business. There is no unfinished business from the previous meetings. So on to item F, hearings. We have hearing F1 at 305 South Main Street. Ms. Thatcher, will you please give the staff report?
Yes. .305 South Main Street is in the Main Street Historic District. It's a 3-story brick Italianate commercial building, was constructed in 1866 and first housed J. Laubengeyer Meats. 305 and its neighbors, 303 and 307 on either side, were covered with a metal panel system from around 1970 until 2002, when they were the home of Lucky Drugs. Though shown on the map as a single parcel, the 3 buildings were constructed separately. The one to the left here was 1866, and the one to the right of our building that we're talking about is 1895. The applicant is seeking HDC approval to install a pedestrian scale sign in the sign band over the front door. This was a slightly unfortunate situation. Let's go through the pictures first, because these are really cool. This is a pre-1871 picture of this corner. The building that we're discussing is this one right here. You can see that it used to have a heavy black cornice that really stood out. And can't see much of the first floor, what's going on here, but it's just very interesting that there's a whole history of the house next door here, and eventually it was removed to build 2 more buildings on this side, and eventually one was built in the middle here. I never really thought about these buildings as sort of standing alone and not being built sequentially, but that is indeed what happened. So this is Biddy & Bo's Coffee at 305 South Main. They got a staff approval for a sign in the sign band many months ago, and a previous tenant, Shalimar Perfumery, put a sign up on a bracket in this little trim box here on one of the columns and never got HCC approval or a sign permit for it. So Biddy & Bo's came in and said, hey, we've hung a new sign on the bracket. Isn't that great? We want a sign permit for it in HDC. And I had to say, sorry, you can't just do it that way. So I've also explained that that's not an appropriate location for such a sign. So they're coming in with a new proposal that you can see there are lots of little pedestrian scale signs up and down here. There's one here, there's one here. And then looking the other way, there's none on the corner, but there is this clock anchoring the corner. They came back with a sign that meets the size requirements. It's not illuminated. It's a very straightforward panel. They've moved their bracket. This was the existing bracket that was already there in the wrong location, and they're proposing to move it up onto the sign band. It's not there right now. This is just a copy and paste on. But it meets sign requirements, it meets HDC pedestrian scale sign guidelines, and pretty straightforward. Going through the Secretary of the Interior standards, number 9 says that new additions, exterior alterations, or related new construction shall not destroy historic materials that characterize the property. The new work shall be differentiated from the old and shall be compatible with massing, size, scale, and architectural features to protect the historic integrity of the property and its environment. From the guidelines for storefronts, it's not recommended to introduce a new design that's incompatible or to use inappropriately scaled signs or other types of signs that obscure, damage, or destroy character-defining features of a historic building. From the Ann Arbor Historic District Design Guidelines for Signs, it's appropriate to install signage that is compatible in size, style, material, and appearance, and installing signage that is subordinate to the overall building composition. I don't have a lot more to say about this. I do think that this is perfectly appropriate and meets the design guidelines, and staff recommends approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thatcher. Commissioners Willis and myself were on the review committee. I'll go ahead and start. I think it's a pretty straightforward application. As the picture shown, there's multiple pedestrian signs. I think moving it up into this portion of the sign band is more appropriate, especially, and it'll be more in alignment with the height of the signs that are already there along this portion of Main Street.
I certainly agree. It's very straightforward.
Thank you.
If there's anyone in the Zoom waiting room for this application, would you please hit the raise hand button? I don't think any of you are.
Okay.
Okay, you're good.
So since the applicant's not here, I'll open the public hearing portion for this item. This is an opportunity for persons to speak for up to 3 minutes about the application at 305 South Main Street. As a reminder, please call 877-853-5247 and enter meeting ID 965-3669-9762 and press star 9 on your phone to indicate you'd like to speak. Are there any public?
There are no callers.
I will close the public hearing portion. Is there a commissioner that would like to make a motion on this application? Commissioner Rockland.
I move that the commission issue a certificate of appropriateness for the application at 305 South Main, a contributing property in the Main Street Historic District, to install a new pedestrian scale sign as proposed. The work is compatible in exterior design, arrangement, texture, material, and relationship to the rest of the building and the surrounding area, and meets the Ann Arbor Historic District design guidelines for signs and the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation and guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings, in particular Standard 9 and the guidelines for storefronts.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Rockland, seconded by Commissioner White. Is there a discussion on the motion?
I just had a question really for the review committee maybe. I know that there's another sign kind of close to it. In the photos, it looks like it's okay, but just wanted to confirm with the review committee when you imagined it up there, is it blocking that sign or is it very clear that we're not gonna upset the existing sign by putting this sign in?
That's a good question. It looks like, so it is the same bracket design as the one that's existing, so that the new one is proposed to be. I did have a question for the applicant about the exact height that this is going to be mounted to, because the image that they've shown, it's kind of a cut and paste, where it looks like it's not quite in the exact, there's no exact position. So if it's mounted lower, I think it could potentially block the sign from that one direction. It's definitely larger in scale, but it's, so I think there's a little bit of potential for that. So if it was mounted a little bit higher, maybe it would be better. But I think at that point, it's probably a 4-foot distance between that and the sign. Go ahead.
If you look at the 10,000 Villages sign in
Yeah.
this photo, you can see that the bottom of it is in this, at the edge of this little brick detail here. And then if you go to there, I realize that this is just superimposed, it's not to scale, but so the bottom of 10,000 Villages is somewhere right around here, just below, like maybe at the top of the window here. That's the bottom of the other one. And so this one, they're going to be offset a little bit.
Yeah.
10,000 Villages is going to be higher than this one, which I think will help a little bit with visibility. It's not ideal, but really, this is the space where the
Yeah.
storefronts probably should go on. But, I mean, other than getting them to move 10,000 Villages to the other side of the storefront, which is not
Yeah.
within our purview.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
very good.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. We're all ready for a vote? All of those in favor, please say yes.
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 All of those opposed, please say no. Right, the motion carries. You must approve, or apply for permits before beginning your project. All right, on to item F2, 200 South Main Street. Ms. Thatcher, will you please give the staff report?
All right, 200 South Main has a very interesting and long history. It started as a commercial vernacular building in the late 1800s. In 1926, that building was remodeled and a floor removed to create the Spanish Revival Kresge Dollar Store. In 1949, this building and the 1916 Kresge 5 and 10, which was next door, were remodeled to form one new store with porcelain enamel panels above the storefront and tan brick above a limestone string course, which is, it's in essence, the building that we see today. After several decades as Kittyland, the store was subdivided in 1994, and the north half became the Mongolian Barbecue. Cafe Felix opened in the south half in early 1997. In December of 2002, the commission approved a request to remove the porcelain enamel panels and replace them with exterior insulated finishing system, EFIS, and to make other storefront modifications. And in 2007, an application to the HDC to replace 25 original double-hung wood windows on the second floor with clad windows was denied. So here is the building. There is an excellent photo history in the application materials. I've only taken a little bit of it here for our discussion, but this is the 1926 building. Yeah, very cool Spanish Revival style. You can see only a few remnants of this building, this design, this exterior cladding today. The windows along the side here still exist, and the upper floor windows are still in the same places. There's a neat turned stone column at the corner that's still there. And unfortunately, most of this very cool Spanish Revival stuff is gone. The 10-cent store next door had was remodeled with a second floor so that it is flush now with the Spanish half. So here is a photo from 1949. This is a very telling photo. This is in the midst of being remodeled from the 1926 style to the 1949 style. So the building is still considered a contributing structure in the historic district by virtue of its age, though it has undergone these transformations. You can see the old Kresge storefronts here. Note that the glass is wrapping the corner here. We can't really see it on the side. I'm not sure what's going on there. But these are the new enamel panels that are being put up. Really makes me wonder if there's anything behind what used to be there, but probably have to take the EFIS off to find out. This is a photo from 1950 when they were all done with that remodel. You can see that the glass block windows were put in then. And the corner entry with the single pillar, the recessed entry, which we see today. And here's this little rectangular window that is very confusing to me. If you look at these, if you look at the storefronts here, this is all considered modern work because it's from 1949. It's outside of the period of significance. The layout is pretty similar to what's there today, though. Here we are standing in front of the building. You can see all the EFIS that was put up where the enameled metal panels were taken down. This column got tiled at some point in the floor here. That's something that hopefully they will replace with a staff approval at a later date, the floor. The column, I think, is proposed to be reclad with cast stone. There's lots of repair work going on here. These awnings would be taken down completely and not replaced at this time. There are a million little light fixture connections all over sticking out. That would all be repaired and patched. The EFIS would be painted. You can see a lot more of them here on the West Washington side. There's a whole row of gooseneck lamps that just, I told them at the review committee that I was going to throw a party when those lamps came down because they're just completely out of place and an oddity there on the side of the building. Completely unnecessary. Here's another view. This is Cafe Felix, now Regents Field, the other half of the building. This is the view of the storefront window systems that they're proposing to replace. And you can see that this one steps up. That happened during the 1949 remodel. And part of the application is to lower the sill heights to match the rest of the storefront windows here, which again, since this work was done in 1949, and I think it would be more appropriate to lower it anyway, I have no qualms about that. You see a lot of deterioration of the limestone base here. I don't want to call it a kick plate, but it runs all the way around the building. Part of the application is to replace this with cast stone, though limestone was mentioned at the meeting, at the review committee meeting, which would be even better. But the application is for cast stone in the same dimensions to be used to replace these blocks all the way around. The storefront windows are also deteriorating. A few of them have been retrofitted with double pane glass. I don't think they all have, though. Here's another photo showing all of those window systems. The architects will tell you more about the window system that they've chosen that is not to replicate this these steel sashes, but to install something that's approaching this look. All of the muttons in these windows are proposed to remain in the same place, which I very much appreciate because this building is noted for these large pieces of glass. I think that's pretty character defining. A few close-ups, all of the corners and joints look like this on these window systems. I know that's not chewing gum, but it really looks like the whole thing's being held together with chewing gum. You can see deterioration. Looks like there was some rust going on under here. And this one appears to be a thermal pane glass glazing, but I don't think they're all like that. Here is some more deterioration on the corner here. This is that main corner entry. This is on the right here is the Washington side. This looks like it's also, this is on the Main Street elevation. In some places, it's got this nice little bevel here on the top. In some places, that's pretty much completely gone, and it's just rounded because limestone wears in that way. Another photo, this panel is proposed to be removed, and this is just ephes up here, but a new storefront window put in its place to match the height of the neighboring storefront window. So the storefront system would just be extended to fill in this square. Here we have the glass block windows. New windows were punched below them. These are the windows that you saw on the 1926 photo, the openings, not the glass block. And this down here is a new window with a new cast stone sill that was put in at some point. These are marching down the side of the building. At the back, we've still got some of these enameled steel panels, which I think are very cool. Still got the Kresge sign. This is a back door that they may start using someday if they put new business or expand into the basement. But in the meantime, this vestibule is very shallow. From the photos in the packet, I thought that it was going to be much deeper than it is. But this is maybe 5 feet from the front of the building back to the door. And they're proposing to put a takeout container system on this wall that I'll show you a picture of in a minute, so that if you ordered takeout from a restaurant that's going into the space, you could walk up and pick up your order without having to go into the restaurant. There are lovely drawings included. I always appreciate when very thorough applications come in. All of the blue windows are the storefront system and the West Washington windows that are proposed to be replaced. The West Washington windows would be 1/1 sashes on the top and then a separate 1/1 on the bottom, which is what was there in 1926 on the top. The bottom didn't exist at that point. Here's that proposed storefront entrance, which would also be replaced, I should mention, on the back, and the ordered food cabinet in the vestibule. There's some a couple of mechanical units proposed on the roof. There's no way you could see these from the street. This is a great space for them. I had to look up the word dunnage, but dunnage means mechanical units on the roof. So I learned something new here. Drawings, I've explained most of this, but awnings to be removed, column to be reclad with cast stone. There aren't any details on that, so we might want to get a little more information on that. This storefront system to be removed, to be extended, this ephes to be removed, and then replacing the row of windows and this door in the back. And that's that work. There will be future signage on these areas, possibly a blade sign. That will come in a separate application, and it is understood that that is not a part of this application. It's just to show you what might be going on in the future with signage. On the interior, interestingly, I wanted you to see, this is the Main Street elevation, and this is where that sill is proposed to be lowered to match the other ones. And you can see in here where at some point it was raised with a bunch of bricks filled in. So when this was the dime store and they remodeled it into what you see now, they must have bumped that up for whatever reason, lost to history. But it did used to be lower. And again, this is the Main Street side of the building. There is window information. There's more information in the packet. I've got a lot of it in here, but not nearly all of it. There's information and profiles on the window and doors, windows and doors that are proposed. And this is the food pickup system, a food locker. So this is this is the size with 2 rows, so it would be effectively like just this half of this unit. In the past, the commission has drawn a firm line that ATMs are not appropriate on street-facing elevations of buildings. This one's a little different because it's in a vestibule, so I will be interested to hear your opinions on that. All right. Also, the enamel steel panels are proposed to be painted, and that would require HDC approval because they are currently an unpainted surface, and they're not wood, and they weren't historically painted. So that is also a part of the application. I would not be in favor of painting them, but if the commission thinks that they're not, you know, they were installed outside of the period of significance. But again, that's up to you, whether you think that it's an appropriate thing to do and whether it will, whether it would be bad for them or anything like that. All right, so going to the Secretary of Interior standards. Standard number 1 says that the property will be used as it was historically or be given a new use that requires minimal change to its distinctive materials, features, spaces, and spatial relationships. Number 2 says that the historic character of a property will be retained and preserved. The removal of distinctive materials or alteration of features, spaces, and spatial relationships that characterize a property will be avoided. I read number 9 to you already. And number 10 says new additions and adjacent or related new construction will be undertaken in such a manner that if removed in the future, the essential form and integrity of the historic property will be unimpaired. From the Secretary of the Interior's guidelines for storefronts, it's not recommended to introduce a new design that is incompatible in size, scale, material, and color. For architectural metals being replaced, it's recommended to replace in kind an entire architectural metal feature that is too deteriorated to repair if the overall form and detailing are still evident, using the physical evidence as a model to reproduce the feature. Examples could include steel sash windows. If using the same kind of material is not technically or economically feasible, a compatible substitute material may be considered. From the guidelines for storefronts, it's not recommended to introduce a new design that is incompatible in size, scale, material, and color. And I would like the architect to comment on color when it's your turn, because I don't think that I had that clearly in the application. Secretary of Interior, Standard 10 is in here again. Wait, what's going on? I'm going the wrong way. That is it. So it's got a lot of pieces to it. So you'll see that there is a very long motion. So you may want to use that or the order in the staff findings to organize your thoughts and guide the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thatcher. All right, again, Commissioners Willis and myself were on the review committee. Do you want to start, Commissioner Willis, or do you want, okay. So there is a lot in the packet. I do think majority of the work is pretty straightforward once you kind of go through and look at everything, especially seeing the building and the work that was being proposed, I think was really helpful. I think Ms. Thatcher did a good job of kind of outlining some of the main points regarding the period of significance and the material that's extant that is within the period and not within the period of significance. So for the most part, the window replacement and is, there's no new openings being replaced. Everything that's being replaced is with non-historic materials. Even the windows on the Washington side, the cast stone sills that are there, they've said are remaining. There's a double sill, those are remaining. So it's really just taking out what's in the existing openings on those and replacing with new. They stated they'd be replacing the water table limestone with cast stone. They also did say that there was a potential quote for limestone, so that may be on the table. So we'll hear from the applicant on that. I think in general, the work that's being done is really going to kind of elevate this corner building a little bit more, and it's going to be considered, right, with all of the lighting removed, the kind of old storefront, the deteriorated water table. I think there's going to be a lot of nice improvements there. I think my only point of hesitation is probably the food service pickup in the rear that there wasn't much information on in the packet and at the review committee. So I think that'll be a good point of discussion. Other than that, I think the majority of the work is appropriate.
I definitely agree, but my one concern was that food storage locker area, and is there really enough room to have what happens in that space? Is it functional with the average size and use of a human being?
All right, would the applicant please step forward? You can state your name for the record, and you have up to 5 minutes to speak about the application.
Hello, thank you for having me. Jonathan Byrne, I represent Odds and Black Architecture, and in this case, the Shapiro Trust, and the proposed Echelon restaurant. Thank you for identifying basically our whole packet for us and walking through the entire history. It's a very complicated history. It's been a long history. It's gone through a lot of renovations. The majority of this would be, as you had mentioned, the storefront replacement. We want, at this moment, there are 4 different window types on the building, at least on our first level, that we'd want to match all of those with the proposed solution. We used the profile we found was identified. It's a Conair system, but we found it in the district guidelines, and we felt like that matched appropriately. So I included that on our page 27. That kind of shows what the historical profile that we were representing was. The color you had mentioned, right now, we're just the design, or we're not the design architects, we're the architect of record. The designers are pushing for either a dark anodized or a dark bronze anodized or a black mullion aluminum system. Right now, there is an entrance off of the main Washington corner that it's on that diagonal. That's actually a black storefront system. So at some point, they came back and retrofitted what was previously probably it all matched. So that's another renovation. Yeah. So if you can see where that Guardian square is, that's actually that's part of that storefront system in there. We're proposing to patch and repair any of the damage done to the ephes on that front corner. There's quite a few holes in there. They had a lot of lit signage up there, before, and there's going to be even more holes when we remove that steel awning. So we intend to keep that. We're going to remove all the awning. We're going to remove everything but patch and replace the holes. And again, signage is going to be a separate review. Both on Main and Washington, there's a little bit of that storefront where we're going to actually extend it down, or we're proposed to extend it down. And then along Washington, like you had mentioned, we're going to extend that over so it looks like one contiguous space, as opposed to, there used to be an office back there that's no longer. It's going to be basically a hostess stand and some more seating for the restaurant. You had mentioned this as well, but that glass block along Washington, I think there's 7 units up there. That was the original. We're going to keep, that was the original, I guess, punched openings. Those will be replaced at the same time as the lower, but we will maintain both the sills. The lower sill is a cast stone sill. The sill in between the 2 windows are actual existing limestone, and we'll see how good of shape they're in when we remove the windows. But our intent is that if we can patch them, if there's some spalling, then we will do that. We will keep those though. Moving along that, we've gotten quotes for replacing the limestone with limestone and replacing it with cast stone. At this time, I don't know if we have the ability to approve just the matching of the material in shape, size, profile, and at that point, can we come back and have a staff approval of if it's limestone or if it's cast stone or if it's another material? I don't know if that's something we can vote on today, or we'd have to go through the process again.
Yeah.
And then moving along that same Washington, Jill mentioned that she wanted to keep those lights for herself, but we're going to remove the goosenecks. We're going to patch the brick. We had talked about possibly cleaning up that brickwork might need a little bit of tuck pointing. We're not really sure. We haven't done a deep dive into it, but we'll look at cleaning that up as well. And then moving along that, then we get to the Melmicata paneling, that we're not really sure. We had mentioned that we wanted to paint it. We are really hesitant to remove it because of what damage could be behind it. That could be a very costly change. So at this time, we'll still recommend, or we're going to proceed with wanting to paint it. We'll scarify it, paint it, and we can get a 10, 15-year warranty out of the painted system. Then it comes on to that food locker. In that alcove there, we propose to place that so that it's not immediately on the street. We didn't think that was appropriate. So we picked a slimline version of that, and if you looked on, I forget what page it was, but the slimline, it's approximately, I would say, 3 feet wide. So we think we can get it so that it only would take place of that rear Melmicata panel. So we would try to go up to that joint. So there's actually 3 panels deep. One's just like the return, so it's a shorter panel. Keep it tucked in as far away as we can, and then salvage the Melmicata panels, put them in storage if we had to ever repair them or replace them when we remove the food locker. I think that's the basic summary. We touched most of those points already, but do you have any questions?
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions? Commissioner Rockland? Go ahead.
But do you have questions? Because I'll go after you if you want to just.
I got to
ask your
think
question.
through what it is.
Okay, so
Go ahead.
I'll ask some questions and then, thank you. First of all, thanks for supplying such a thorough report. It's really helpful to us when you do that, so it's much appreciated.
Thank you.
And forgive me if these answers are in the report, but I was curious about the windows. There's on Washington, you've got the original punched opening, the opening below. What, I think the staff report, to me, what I heard was that we're going to have 1-over-1 windows in each of those openings. It's not clear on the elevation, so what is the proposal for those
There's,
open?
so I think the reference was, there'll be fixed windows. They're not going to be like a double pane window. It's going to be one fixed light above, then you'll have the sill, one fixed light below.
Okay.
So not operable.
Not operable, fixed windows.
Fixed window.
And they won't have a horizontal mullion
won't.
in each that maybe would mimic the double hung that was originally there. But it's just going to be what I see here, basically, which is a fixed.
Correct.
With I suppose the mullion will match the storefront mullion, is that?
Correct. Right now, we weren't proposing to do any mullion inside of those.
Right, okay. Sorry, the frame,
Right.
I meant to say frame, not mullion. The frame will look like the storefront frame?
Correct.
Is
It
that-
will be one set, so,
Okay.
correct. But there won't be any internal mullion at this time.
Got it.
One sheet of glass.
Thank you. Next question is when you're proposing to paint the panels. So when I'm looking at the panels now, they look like panels. When you paint them, what do they look like? Is the joint offset or like a different color than the paint, or how will they look after you paint them?
Correct. It'll still have the panelized appearance. We'll paint them. We have to rough up the surface a little bit for the
Yeah.
paint to adhere.
Uh-huh.
But in the packet, I had mentioned that we'll try to match, or we will match the same paint color as the EFS, whatever we pick for the EFS.
Right.
However, it's not going to retain like that running bond look that the EFS has. It has that like jointing pattern.
Yeah.
The panel will still retain the panel shape.
Okay.
We're not going to fill in any of the paneling seams.
Right, okay. I want to say grout, but is it grout or is it?
Right.
it
No,
is grout?
yeah.
It's not grout?
No,
It's
this
a-
isn't grout. It's like a metal panel, and you think of like
Yeah.
a reveal.
Right,
in
it's
it.
it's probably just
It's a
caked with
reglet,
dirt
it's like a
over-
metal reglet.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Yeah.
It is it's a metal reglet, okay.
Yeah, yeah. Will that be painted, the metal, or is it going to
I assume it
remain-
will all be painted.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah.
There's the, just taking notes here, so
Oh, okay.
gonna let him take some notes. Next question. Do you have a proposal for the recladding of that pier that's right at the entryway?
At this time, no. In this report, we had mentioned that we were going to use cast stone. The reference I meant to put in that I think I maybe didn't word it correctly would be that we would match that same banding profile as the base and continue that at the same height around. The above where we have, it's like a tile, like a mosaic tile that's currently there.
Yeah.
Right now, it's mosaic tile and the base is wood. So we'd replace the wood with a cast stone or a limestone, whatever we'd be using on the base around the watermark line. But the upper has not been really designed through yet. We were thinking it was going to be a tile, but more like a large format and a kind of in a muted tone or something like that, like a gray, not a mosaic tile like what you see.
Okay.
So again, I don't know how to, until we get that fully designed, would we have to go through that process again or submit our elevations with proposed materials and then maybe that could be reviewed on a separate note.
It'll have to be reviewed
Yeah.
separately, yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
And I guess same question for the floor. I'm assuming it's the same, the floor there?
Correct. There's discussion whether or not we put in, we gotta rip out the existing tile there. It's a mosaic tile. We gotta see how the waterproofing is. We're gonna have to probably re-waterproof it, put something in, and then have to re-slope it with concrete. So we might do a sloped concrete surface, and then put some joining patterns in to make it replicate, look like tile, like a tile pattern. But at this time, that hasn't been fully vetted out.
Okay. That's my list.
Okay.
Thank you.
Um,
Thank you.
Just to follow up on Commissioner Rockland's last question about the limestone or that column. You mentioned replacing just the wood base. Is it to the same extent as the wood that's there, or were you looking for the same water table height, or is that unknown?
Yeah, we would match. If it looks like it's a little different height than the water table along the building. So we're going to propose matching what's on the building, but if it makes more sense to match the wood, I don't think that'll really change the design too much.
I think my only, concern about that is not knowing what you would be putting on the rest of it, that might change the design, so it may be better just to pull that. If you're going to have to resubmit for that application, then maybe it's better just to omit that.
Basically, the flooring and the column at the same time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So.
I think that's fine.
Okay.
So there is a line in the sample motion that you may use, but if someone is making the motion, you might want to take that line out.
Regarding the column?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you started to address a little bit that food locker in the back. You said you think it's about 3 feet wide.
Correct.
But okay.
Correct.
And you guys, it will be mounted flush, is that correct?
So
to the wall?
the way these work is that this food locker is actually a pass-through locker. So it's filled from the inside of the restaurant.
Okay.
Somebody comes in, they punch in their code, and then they can open it from the exterior without having to enter the restaurant themselves.
Okay.
So it'll actually be tucked into that wall.
Okay.
So the front face, where you see like the PUC and the digital display, that will be flush with the front of the Malmacata panels that are to remain.
Okay.
So we hope that we only have to take out that rear panel. It looks like it's approximately the same size,
Okay.
and then we'll salvage those panels.
Okay. So it'll be a full new opening essentially in
Correct.
that portion of the wall. Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Those were my only questions. Commissioner Ross?
So I had a quick question. So will the signage come later on?
That'll be a separate as well, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'll now open the public hearing portion for this item. Again, this is an opportunity for persons to speak for up to 3 minutes about the application at 200 South Main Street. You may do so by calling 877-853-5247 and pressing *9 on your phone. Ms. Thatcher, do we have any callers?
No callers are indicating.
Okay, I'll close the public hearing portion. Is there a commissioner that would like to make an motion? Commissioner Fortner.
Give it a try.
Thank you.
I'll move that the commission issue a certificate of appropriateness for the application at 200 South Main Street, a contributing property in the Main Street Historic District, to lower the sill on one storefront window, replace all storefront windows and entry doors with a new aluminum storefront system, replace 8 glass block windows and 7 fixed sash windows on the north elevation with new aluminum windows that keep the existing sill, expand the storefront on the northwest Washington elevation to replace a narrow horizontal window, replace the storefront's failing limestone base with cast stone, add rooftop dunnage and mechanical units, add a food pickup locker near the storefront at the rear of the store on West Washington, and paint mall mancata paneling at the northwest corner of the building to match the ephes as proposed. The work is compatible in exterior design, arrangement, texture, material, and relationship to the rest of the building and the surrounding area, and meets the Ann Arbor Historic District guidelines, design guidelines for the storefronts, and the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation and guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings, in particular standards 1, 2, 9, and 10, and the guidelines for storefronts.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Fortner, seconded by Commissioner White.
I just have a minor amendment to the
Yep.
motion.
Go for it.
I think that we should add, so in the middle there, replace the storefront's failing limestone base with cast stone or limestone.
To
Because
match.
it seemed,
In
it seemed like that was the request
Yeah.
of the applicant there, that they might do limestone or cast stone, right?
Commissioner Rockland, would you also consider adding the words "in matching dimensions"?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Matching color, shape.
Yeah, matching color and
To
dimensions.
match, yeah, to match existing.
To match the existing, that
Yeah.
works, yeah.
We need a second.
Support.
Thank you.
Any discussion? I'm sure there's discussion. No. Commissioner Rockland?
Well, should we talk about, I don't know, should we talk about the painting the panels or something? I feel like there's a lot that's sort of, we probably don't need to discuss so much, but
Right.
I had some questions about painting the panels, so shall we start there?
That's fine, yeah,
Okay.
sounds good.
I believe it's a question for staff. So I just need some clarification on painting the panels. So because there's like different layers of what's sort of critical to think about. So the panels are not contributing, is that correct? They were part of the 1949
Correct.
build, okay. So then, just in general though, remind me about, I don't know if they're in the standards exactly, or just are they sort of the typical decisions that we make here about painting a non-wood feature of a historic building, whether it be contributing or not?
Right, that's why the commission needs to decide
So
whether they can paint it.
what is the typical way that this is handled, and what are the exceptions to that? And or is there?
There's not a typical way.
Okay, so if there's a brick building and.
Yeah. If there's a brick building, it's
Right.
much clearer because paint is bad for brick.
Right, okay.
And I think that I simply have a bias toward these panels.
Yeah, okay.
But they are not from the period of significance. But I don't know if any harm would be caused by painting them, which is why I was kind of hoping that some of you might
Okay.
have some opinions on that. Maybe it wouldn't, maybe it would be just fine. But once the surface is roughed up and they're painted, we're never going back to that.
Right.
It's
Definitely not.
final.
Can they be cleaned without ruining them now?
I don't know.
Do we know?
I don't think that they can necessarily be cleaned. There are some rust spots that I think we'd want to rough up to just clean off the rust.
The graffiti?
There's also graffiti on them that we'd have to clean off. I've never had to deal with Melmicado panels. We have done metal panel paintings that we've taken a building that has metal panel on it, scarified that and painted over it, and it's gotten 15, 20 years longevity on the paint. But no, we don't really have, they haven't made these panels in a long time.
Yeah, well, I guess that's where I'm a little torn too, just with 1949 is very close, but also it's not the period of significance. So, yeah, I guess in terms of the paint, I don't see anything in the standards necessarily to say that it's not appropriate to paint them. From what I'm hearing so far. So it'd be nice to hear, if people feel differently, I'd love to hear some discussion about it, but if that's where, I'd also be interested if that's where other folks are kind of leaning towards.
I mean, I'm kind of in Ms. Thatcher's camp of having kind of, these types of panels have a special place in my heart, but I guess but if these panels fall outside of the period of significance, they're not distinctive character defining features that must be retained. So to me, the question would be not necessarily a fear of like damaging the material in itself because it's significant. It would be more so if by painting, scarifying it and painting it, would it damage the building itself? Does it have some potential to cause some long-term or future damage to the whatever's underneath there? Or is it like prolonging some potential issue that these panels are covering up? I don't know. But it doesn't sound like like, what?
Mm-hmm.
So,
I agree
Yeah.
with that statement, and I think initially I was thinking they were in the period of significance, and I was a little concerned, or I was concerned, that they'd be scarified, that would be like absolutely not, because there is no going back from that, but they're not in the period of significance, even though they are close. I think that, just looking at them on site and kind of tapping on them, and look, they seem to have, like, the paint surface that's on there isn't totally flat to begin with. It has like a little bit of a raised mill to it, and I believe they're a metal face of some sort. They're over a half an inch thick. They seem to be in decent condition, other than a few rust spots. So I think doing a little bit of work to recoat them, if that's all it is recoating, I don't see as being damaging to the product.
Well, I agree with the two commissioners. And the big part of this is when you go back to try to clean this the side of the building with the graffiti, there may be some damage there in doing that.
Right.
So by painting that, it will look a lot better. And it's not in the period that we have a problem with.
Go ahead.
No, sorry, I'll save my comment.
Ready to vote?
I think he has some
Hey, you
other.
have a comment?
Yeah, he has some other
It's not about
comments.
the paint, so I just wanted to make
Okay.
sure we were done with the
Well,
paint
not
comment.
paint, whatever the cover
It's-
is,
Yeah.
whatever he's planning on covering it with.
Just a quick comment.
Sure.
I have to say this, the original building from the late 1800s is absolutely amazing.
Oh, it is.
Just go check it out. It's just amazing. It's like a 3-story building that looks like it's, I don't know, 50
Totally
feet tall
ornate,
or
yeah.
something, and the third story double hung windows are like 16 feet tall or something.
It's an amazing
just
building.
amazing, yeah. Okay. Had to be said.
Why wouldn't you want a Moorish
Yeah.
store
It's
downtown Ann
amazing.
Arbor?
Yeah, well,
It's
the one
amazing.
before this was even crazier, yeah. Could I ask
Yeah,
a question?
go for it.
Commissioners, do you have any concerns about the window frame color? Is it unusual to put a black frame on a yellow brick building, and is that compatible with the rest of downtown, or is it just fine?
Regents are all black, that place next door.
Oh, they are? Let's look at Regents. Thank you for pointing that out. They're like dark brown wood, aren't they?
Aren't they?
But the railing by the front is black, yeah.
I mean, it's quite a contrast.
Yeah,
to the
it's
Yeah.
it's dark wood.
I've seen a number of replacement storefronts in black.
Right. It
So,
does sort of say
yeah.
21st century.
Right.
But does that matter?
Dark bronze is really close. I'm not too concerned about that coloring. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Ready to vote?
Any other discussion items,
Do we
Commissioners?
want to talk about the food locker?
I do.
Is that far enough?
Yeah,
Have
sir.
you been there and seen that
Um,
alcove?
I would feel more comfortable if there was more information from the applicant about the exact size, I think, of the locker and how much, even though we've talked about those panels not being contributing, just knowing the full extent of what the opening would have to be to fit that locker within that space. I think it being, flush or not impeding in the alcove, I think it is better than, it sticking out or being mounted to the building face. But I think having dimensions on the opening would be desired.
I mean, are the doors hinged, or how does the doors open, or how does the thing open?
John, do you know how the doors open?
So I'm not familiar with this exact food locker as much. There are a couple different ones that we can use. The doors would hinge. They would open. They would basically punch in your code. They unlock. I don't know if it's like an awning style or if it's a door style. And I do want to mention that in that alcove, they would be on the left side, which if you look at that image, that's an actual fixed light there. So we're going to be replacing that storefront in kind, as in like we'll have a 3-foot wide door in the same location and then a side light. So I don't think it'll impede on anybody coming in and going. But yeah, I understand, and I will reply back with better dimensions and more knowledge about this one area.
Do you know the lighting that's in that cabinet? Is that,
No, we'll be replacing the lighting, and it'll probably be one fixture.
oh, I'm sorry, in the food cabinet itself, in the pickup?
We
Are
can
those
send
lights always on, or do you know anything else about the
No,
lighting?
I can find out more information
Okay.
for you on that, though.
If you're proposing to change this light up here, you should include that information when you come back to talk about the food locker, because that should also be approved by the commission if you're not using that same opening up there. If you are, that's fine.
Now, if
Just leave
we
it the way it is.
are replacing it with a 1-for-1, just like an LED, would that be something that would be appropriate? Or?
I don't care what's on the inside,
Mhm.
but just if you're taking off this panel.
frame.
and-
Trim.
Yeah, it's very unique. If you're just putting in, new guts behind it, that's great. But if you're not using that opening and you want to, make it a circle or a square or something like that, then it needs to come back through.
Okay, so it sounds like we'll do a deeper dive into both of the entryways for finishes on both the flooring and ceiling,
That
as
sounds
well
good.
as lighting.
Sounds
Yeah.
good.
Okay.
So should we take the food locker out of this
Motion?
motion?
Yeah.
I think so. Do you want to come back to our next meeting with
Sure.
the food locker, or do you want to come back later
Would
than
that be March?
Yes, March 9.
We can pull together some more information
Okay.
and resubmit those
Okay.
portions.
But the due date's before March 9th, right? Won't he need to get you the stuff?
He's okay. He's okay, because he's already in, so.
You're good.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
So commissioners, you would need to take that line out and then postpone that portion of the application to March 9. Does that make sense? So that you don't vote on it tonight.
Right, we just
I
did that.
second that.
Well, but you should postpone it.
Okay, is that the same with the column? Because the column, there is reference to the
Oh,
column.
we did take the
I took
column
that
out of the motion, though.
Yeah, but the column you just struck. The column could be a staff approval with the floor. In the past, that was a staff approval, which isn't reflecting very well on staff. But if you want that to come back, that should also be part of a postponement, yes.
So I didn't hear all that. Can you say
So
that
you
again?
can, if you want the column and the vestibule work to come back, the food locker and any lighting, to come back to the March 9 meeting, you should postpone that portion of the application.
Okay. So that the motion would be amended to remove those portions and then.
Right, you just strike them out of this
Okay.
motion.
And
One of
then
them's already
Do we
gone.
need a separate motion to postpone those two
Yes.
items? Okay.
Yes,
I
yes.
wasn't sure. if that-
Yeah, you guys haven't postponed anything in a long time.
No, we haven't.
That's good.
Okay.
Okay. So you're striking,
The food locker and the column.
from the application?
From the
correct?
app- from the
From the
motion.
motion, okay,
Seconded.
Okay.
right.
And we've added some wording. Did you get that? So we've added to replace the storefront's failing limestone base with cast stone or limestone
To match the
to
existing.
match the existing color and dimension.
Okay, got that.
So we can vote on this motion and then we can make a second motion?
Yes.
All right. Are there any other questions for this motion or discussion points for this motion? Right, all those ready to vote?
Yeah.
All those in favor, please say yes.
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 All of those opposed, please say no. Okay. We have a second motion regarding the remaining pieces of the application?
Okay, I make a motion to postpone the parts of the application for 200 South Main Street concerning, or in regards to the food locker in the vestibule and the column at the front entrance.
Support. Second.
Moved by Commissioner Fortner, seconded by Commissioner White. Any discussion on this motion? Ready to vote? All of those in favor of the motion, please say yes.
Yes.
All of those opposed, please say no. Okay, thank you. So a portion of your application has passed, so for that work, you'll just have to get permits, and then we'll see you back here at the March 9th. Thank you.
Thanks.
See you in March.
All right, on to item F3, at 214 South Main Street. Ms. Thatcher, will you please give the staff report?
All right, 214 South Main Street is also in the Main Street Historic District. It's a two-story commercial building that was constructed in 1949 in the Art Moderne style. I think I got a photo of it here for you. Yeah. The original occupant was F.W. Woolworth Company. The storefront's second-floor windows and two second-floor window openings are not original and were installed after 1989. You can see how on this photograph there's sort of a full-height panel on the ends of the second floor. Windows were added into those. The HDC approved that back then. Prior to 1949, the building was part of the three-story circa 1900 commercial vernacular building that extended to this corner of South Main and West Liberty. I should have included a photo, but this building used to have more typical archtop windows, but it extended all the way from the corner all the way across to Linda Lee here, and was a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think 6-bay massive furniture store. Had a big fire, and all of the building except this bay came down. We know Cunningham Drugs well on the corner there. This is the other bookend to that building, the Woolworths building. So similar to the last application, this was a 1949 building, so it is, but this one is considered not a contributing structure because they may have taken it down to the ground and rebuilt it, is my assumption, why this one is all 1949, and the other one still had like historic walls and things that kept it as a contributing structure. Here's some close-ups of the windows. This is a very straightforward application. In these openings, these are replacement windows. You can see that historically they had sort of horizontal 2-over-2 sashes that slid up and down, but now we've got these casements over a fixed panel, and they are wood. They are no longer aging well, and even the newer ones that were put on the ends are in possibly worse shape than the center ones that have been there longer. I included these windows, Mr. Curtis will correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that these windows, this is also his building, these large windows are the same style and materials that are proposed for this application, correct? Yeah. Oh, sorry. Well, I'll just ask you when you're up in a second, Jim. The windows that are proposed are pretty much very closely matching in size and dimensions and style to the existing windows. So they are clad though, and that's what kicked them into needing Historic District Commission approval. On the inside, you can see their lovely wood finish. Oh, the bottom's a hopper. That's interesting. Yeah. And so I already read to you Secretary of Interior Standard 9 and 10. Replacement windows, it's recommended to replace in kind an entire window that's too deteriorated to repair using the same sash and pane configuration and other design details. If the same kind of material is not technically or economically feasible when replacing windows deteriorated beyond repair, then a compatible substitute material may be considered. Let's see, if a window is completely missing, replacing it with a new window based on documentation or a new design compatible with the original opening and the historic character of the building. Materials other than wood will be reviewed by the Commission on a case-by-case basis. So Again, going from, so look at these windows, these big tan sashes, those are the same clad, aluminum clad wood windows. I think it's aluminum clad, isn't it? Aluminum horizontal mold material.
I think they say vinyl clad in the application.
Yeah, let's see. Anderson horizontal priority stack. Sandtone exterior frame. All right, well, Mr. Curtis can fill us in on that as well, since it doesn't seem to actually specify it here. But that's about it for my report. I do think that replacing these windows with clad windows that are going to look essentially the same is completely appropriate on this non-contributing building. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thatcher. Commissioners Willis and myself were on the review committee. Commissioner Willis, anything to add?
I think the way that the newer windows have deteriorated more than the older ones really convinces me that this is definitely a project that is necessary to happen and will impact the beauty of the overall building.
Thank you. I agree with staff and Commissioner Willis's report. It was also noted on site that, and visible, that there is deterioration in the wood sash. You know, it's swelling and starting to rot. Some windows can't be opened, but also the glazing pane has, in between, on some of the windows, the gasketing has failed, so you're getting discoloration within the windows themselves. You can see it on the two end units particularly. I think, you know, the proposal, the applicant stated on site that the windows would be placed within the same plane. It's nearly identical as the windows that are existing, so I think this is appropriate. Would the applicant please step forward and just state your name for the record, and you have up to 5 minutes if you have anything additional to add.
My name is Jim Curtis. My family and I are the owners of the house since '96, and we're hoping that we do gain approval to put the windows that we're proposing to put in. We've tried our best. We have one of our members of our company is a general contractor, and for the last 15 years particularly, we've been nursing these wooden-clad windows, and they're like sponges. They saturate water, and as they expand, it's hard to open up the windows, and then being able to close them requires us to have an extension ladder to push on the glass and then try to close the glass. And from that standpoint, it's not practical, particularly in the winter. Some of the newer windows, the ones on the two extreme sides, the north and the south side, were the newest addition, and we worked with the Historical Commission to cut out some of the brick and replicate what was there in order to put windows in on the north and south side of the building to add more light and ventilation to the second floor. Interestingly enough, those are the ones that are deteriorating quicker. And I wonder if today we don't make things as well as we used to. But nonetheless, they're all aging and absorbing water rapidly. And we're hoping that instead of repairing or replacing one at a time, to do them all at one time. As was stated, the look will be virtually identical from what is there now from what we're proposing. The height of the new windows will be only a 1/16 of an inch in difference. And only the two outer windows, which conform with the brick on the top of the windows, are slightly narrower than the 5 in the middle by about 1.5 inches. Virtually, you wouldn't even see it. But where the openings are now, the windows would be in the same place. They would be recessed as they are now. And as far as color, I know we were asked that question. We're probably going to go not with sandstone, but something that's a bit darker, perhaps bronze. So it gives us the option to paint the building with a different motif periodically. Since acquiring the building almost 30 years ago, it's been painted 5 times, and we don't want to be connected to a vinyl color that would require us to be connected to a certain color, which we have a comment, which we normally paint every 5 years. So that is our hope, to be able to replace those windows.
Commissioners, are there any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Ross?
I have 2 questions. So the first question, looking at the specs, the specs mentioned full screen.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, the specs mention like a full screen. Is there some sort of screen on these windows?
No.
Okay,
One could put a screen in the bottom section from the inside.
okay,
The lower sash is the one that'll open from the top hinge, and it'll swing out so that if it's left open, rain won't come in. But generally speaking, second floors of the commercial buildings downtown do not require screens. If it were residential, it would require.
okay. And then while you were kind of,
So there won't be any screens outside. in other
okay,
words.
awesome. And then when you were just kind of talking, giving a background, you mentioned vinyl, is that, or did I mishear?
Say that one more time.
You mentioned, I thought I heard you mention vinyl for the cladding, or did I mishear?
It will be vinyl, yes.
So
Just
it's
like
not-
Jill had mentioned, 220 South Main Street, when I was at that time the owner of that building, we replaced the existing windows that were wood with a vinyl-clad panel glass that replicated what was there. And so this will look at virtually the same of what we have right now.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jim, from your quote, it does look like they're charging you for screens.
Well, we'll exclude those then. This was an estimate that we received, and this was months ago that when we received it.
Any other questions, commissioners? Okay, thank you. Is there a commissioner that would like to make a motion? Looking at that.
Do we have a public hearing?
Oh, no. My fault, my apologies. We have to have a public hearing first.
Okay.
Let me move back to that. So, I'll open the public hearing for the item at 214 South Main Street. This is an opportunity for persons to speak up to 3 minutes about this application. If there's any public comment, please call 877-853-5247 and enter or press *9 on your phone to indicate you would like to speak. Do we have any callers, Ms. Thatcher?
We do not.
Okay, thank you for that reminder. I will close the public hearing portion, and now is there a commissioner that would like to make a motion? Looking at that end down there. I'm going to pick one of you two.
I'll do it.
Okay, Commissioner Rockland, thank you.
Someone else can do it too. I move that the commission approve the application at 214 South Main Street, a non-contributing property in the Main Street Historic District, to replace 7 second floor wood windows with vinyl-clad Anderson wood windows as proposed. The commission finds the work meets the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation and guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings, in particular standards 9 and 10, and the guidelines for windows, and the City of Ann Arbor Historic District Design Guidelines for windows.
Support.
Great. Moved by Commissioner Rockland, seconded by Commissioner White. Is there a discussion on the motion? We'll get there, just a second. I think there's some question regarding the vinyl cladding versus, what we might typically see as an aluminum cladding. It is a wood window with vinyl cladding. I was looking back at the guidelines just now to see, appropriate materials other than wood will be reviewed by the commission on a case-by-case basis. Not appropriate is wrapping exterior wood trim in aluminum or vinyl, so that doesn't apply here. Recommended also for windows from the Secretary of Interior guidelines, replacing in-kind entire window that is too deteriorated or repaired to repair. If using the same kind of material, not technically or economically feasible when replacing windows deteriorated beyond repair, then a compatible substitute material may be considered. Not recommended installing new windows, including frame sash mount configuration that are incompatible, so it doesn't really discuss materials. And I think that this has come up on other materials throughout the, in the guidelines themselves. I think, it's a cladding. We've seen some other instances with it being a dark bronze or a black color. I'm not too concerned about it being a vinyl material. So,
I mean, I guess just also adding that the building is not contributing.
right.
So I could ask Ms. Thatcher, so you were saying that the building right next to it also has wood?
It
vinyl
does.
clad wood windows?
Those large sashes, the wood windows were replaced with vinyl-clad wood windows. There was, I think that was a water infiltration problem on that building. That was probably 10 years ago that application came through. And appearance-wise,
Can't tell.
you don't notice. They're up. People don't tend to look up at windows. They notice storefronts more. And the commission has approved a couple of other vinyl-clad window replacements. You're right that most of them are aluminum in the downtown, aluminum cladding. But quite frankly, vinyl-clad wood windows, I think, almost have a better profile in some ways than aluminum, because the aluminum tends to be very flat. And the vinyl can have a little bit more of a profile to it, but it's sort of 6 and 1/2 dozen the other to me.
Right, yeah, I mean, it's not like we're looking at vinyl windows where you're getting that
Right.
chunky,
Right.
terrible appearance.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah.
I think overall, as an application, that the applicant is replacing what's there, and I think doing so in a very considered manner, even down to, an 1/16 of an inch. That's pretty, I appreciate that. So, all those ready to vote? Okay. All of those in favor of the motion, please say yes.
Yes.
All of those opposed, please say no. Okay, your motion carries. Thank you. Commissioner Rock. Thank you. You scared me that week. I missed the motion.
No. Thank you, Mr. Curtis.
Thank you.
Now on to item F4, 514 6th Street.
This is in the Old West Side Historic District. It's a 1 3/4 story gable fronter, features 1/1 windows, a stone foundation, narrow wood lap siding, and a wood frieze board. The front porch was originally the width of the house and did not wrap the corner. It's unknown whether the fancy porch brackets are from the period of significance. First appears in Polk City directories in 1884, and from 1894 until at least 1910, it was occupied by a Henning. At the April 8th, 2021 HTC meeting, an application for 197 square foot rear addition and other modifications to the rear of the house was approved. And you'll be able to see that work in just a second. The applicant is seeking HTC approval to construct a 123 square foot screen porch on the rear elevation of the house attached to a modern addition. This is a very straightforward application. You can see here some of the new work. These windows are replacements, and these windows are replacements. They're a more appropriate size than the previous ones. This is the screen porch off the back. I'm just showing this to you before I show you the photos so that you can get an idea of what you'll be looking for. This is the rear of the house. You may recall from 2 years ago that this little wood dormer was reworked, and the back of the house was reworked a little bit. I believe that this new roof over the covered patio is new, and this is the new room that was like 150 square feet or something like that. This was the addition to the house. The rest of this was here, but they modified it so that it worked better to live in. So the screen porch is proposed to come directly off of this. The roof would just be extruded out. The wall planes are the same. You can see that there's a little inset here to the back wall. And there's plenty of room for this. We were a little bit concerned about this big tree at first, but the review committee paced it off, and the addition will be at least 6 feet from it. And this is the view from the front, from the street. This is the side. So You may be able to see a little bit of a screen porch there. You'll see that the wall goes back, keeps extending back another 10 feet or so, but a pretty minimal change. Since it's attached to a new addition, no historic materials are being touched. Here it is. It's 10 and a half feet almost by almost 12 feet. It's got a door. It's got screens. There's not a whole lot to say about it. The trim is Boral. The screens are custom. These are, it's on posts with poured concrete footers. Here it is on the back. Very simple, very straightforward, very compatible. The hardy matches the new hardy that's on the back of the house from the previous application. There's a cross section, there's a section, and some nice 3D models of what it would look like. So I have read to you standards 2 and 9 and 10 already. The guidelines for additions recommend constructing a new addition so that there's the least possible loss of historic materials and so that character-defining features are not obscured, damaged, or destroyed. It's recommended to locate the addition at the rear or on an inconspicuous size of the historic building, limiting its size and scale in relationship to the historic building, and designing new additions in a manner that makes clear what is historic and what is new. It's not recommended to design a new addition so the size and scale in relation to the historic building are out of proportion, thus diminishing the historic character. From the Ann Arbor Historic District Design Guidelines for residential porches, it's appropriate to install a new porch and entrance on secondary elevations. It may be appropriate if it does not diminish the building's architectural character and the design and materials are compatible with the building and the site. Staff recommends approval of this application, and I have no concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thatcher. Commissioner Wallace, would you like to give your report?
I would agree 100% with the staff report, very straightforward, and enough distance between the tree and the addition to be comfortable with.
I agree. This is extremely straightforward application. I don't have anything else to add. So, do we have an applicant?
Joey Schwartz, if you are representing the applicant for this, would you raise your hand, please, so I can let you into the meeting? If not, then we may not have anyone. Okay, I don't see any hand raising going on, so I don't think we have an applicant here.
Okay. So we'll open the public hearing portion for 514 6th Street. If there's a person who'd like to comment about this application, you have up to 3 minutes to speak. You can do so by calling 877-853-5247 and press *9 on your phone. Do we have anyone indicating to speak?
Nope, no callers are indicating.
Okay. Do we have callers on the line?
We don't have any phone
Okay.
callers on the line.
Okay.
No, sorry.
No, you're
No attendees are indicating.
going to just check on the applicant again?
Yeah.
If not? Okay, so there's no applicant.
No.
Is there a commissioner that would like to make a motion on the application? Commissioner Ross, thank you.
Okay. I move that the commission issue a certificate of appropriateness for the application at 514 6th Street, a contributing property in the Old West Side Historic District, to construct a 120-square-foot screen porch on the rear elevation of the house as proposed. The work is compatible in exterior design, arrangement, texture, material, and relationship to the rest of the building and the surrounding area and meets Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation and guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings, in particular standards 2, 9, and 10, and the guidelines for new additions, as well as the Ann Arbor Historic District Design Guidelines, particularly as they pertain to porches.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Ross, seconded by Commissioner White. Is there a discussion on the motion? Any commissioners? Commissioner Rockland?
Just a comment that it doesn't have the indent that some additions do because it's attached to an already there non-contribute, or I guess addition, a new addition. So it's a bit of a loophole in the standards where you can just go right back if you have the house with the addition on the side like this one. It's just, it fits the standards without the bump in.
Good point.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, we're ready for a vote. All of those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
All of those opposed, please say no. All right, the motion carries. Moving along. On to item G. Let me get back to the agenda here. New business, retreat planning. Ms. Thatcher.
Yes, so the annual retreat, we need to pick a date. I have a couple here to propose to throw out. We usually hold it in March. Sometimes it lingers into April, but the weather gets nicer then, so people don't usually want to come in April. And it's typically a Saturday morning from 9 to noon. And the dates that it would be great to start discussion with are March 4th and March 18th. So does anyone have a favorite or cannot make it one of both of those dates?
I
Okay.
cannot either, so.
Okay, we've got 2 no's on the 4th.
I'm out of town on the 18th.
You're out of town on the 18th. Okay, how do others feel about the 18th?
I like it.
I'm okay
Jess
with
is
it.
still going to be out, so it's just you guys.
I'm fine with either.
But, okay. Bev, you okay with either?
Yeah, I am.
Okay. Anna, you okay with the 18th?
I'm okay with the 18th. I was just,
Oh, you were not out of the 4th.
I was just looking
yeah.
if there was another Saturday in March.
Okay.
That,
Yeah, we can look at another Saturday if you'd like.
I can do the 11th, but that's the only other.
The only issue with the 11th is I have my current HCC meeting and this one and then.
Oh, it's the
The
same
11th,
week
that
as
would be
HDC. Yeah, got it.
staff.
That's a good point.
Yeah. But I could, if it means that everybody can come, I guess I would take the hit.
Or-
Bob, I believe you could not come on the 11th, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
I guess the
Me
Me
only,
neither.
You neither. Okay, 2 down.
the only thing would then be going into April. Is that correct?
25th, no good?
25th is the first weekend of spring break,
Okay.
so no good for me. Not that I'll be going anywhere, but I don't want to bring both my kids to the HTC retreat.
Okay.
Well, you
How many
know,
did we have for the 18th?
Everyone except for Dave and Jess.
Well,
Correct.
Jess is out
Jess
for
is
all.
out for all.
Right, even through, when is she coming back? So if she was here in April, I
Well,
guess is my
she
only
says,
question.
her out of office says maybe April.
Okay. So then,
She's not going to commit to anything in April,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
so the 18th, we have, I think, everyone here.
Give 1 second, Dave.
Wait,
Except David.
I'm sorry, could we go back to the 25th?
Sure.
What do you guys think about the 25th?
Yeah, I can
I'm
do it.
out on 25th.
That one's
Oh.
questionable for me. I can maybe make it.
Okay, well, and it's not great for me, so I thought maybe if everybody else
Right,
could, we
yeah.
could do that, but okay. Not the 25th.
We're back to the 18th.
We're back to the 18th. Yeah. Yep, I can't do April 8th, so I think we're going to stick with the 18th. I'm sorry, Commissioner Rockland.
That's all right. I'll brief you, David. I'll take you out to coffee.
Send us your notes.
And I will play the recorder for you.
Thank you.
And I'm going home. Bring the phone back.
And we do need a couple of topics to talk about. We'll have the review of built projects from the last year, which is always fun. We have our annual bylaw reviews, which takes a couple of minutes. I had given you a list, I think, in an email of a couple of topics. Let me get that out of my to-do list. One of the possibilities was talking about vinyl siding, and if it ever has an appropriate place on historic houses. We had a nasty vinyl siding application a few months ago. I shouldn't say nasty, but it was a difficult discussion because,
He was halfway done with the project.
yes, and, yeah. So that had been suggested by someone. to talk about that. Another suggestion had been design guidelines for the backs of houses. Are crazy windows compatible on additions? Do we want to discuss whether or not it's appropriate to basically have anything goes on the back on an addition? Or should there be some standards for that?
I think that's good.
If we could just broaden that to not visible from the public right of way or whatever.
Right. I'm going to add that. Another is, when is it okay to install clad windows on commercial or residential? Possibly either as a commission approval to give you more guidance, or as a staff approval, if there are some. We did add some recently to the staff approval list. But for example, thinking about the application here tonight, is that something that you would be comfortable with as a staff approval or not? We could talk about that.
Especially if it's a one-to-one replacement.
That's a
Kind of like
replacement.
today.
Yeah.
Or
it's
today,
within-
yeah.
We're talking replacement.
Right, not original.
16th of an inch.
Not original. Yeah.
Original.
Yeah. And then just energy efficiency. Do we want to look more closely at cladding and windows? And it's not a bad thing to revisit, because about once a year, somebody calls me and says, well, the energy office says that we need to, tighten up our houses, and replacing all my windows is the best way to do that. So you guys need to get on board. So it's sometimes nice for me to be able to say, well, at their annual retreat last year, they discussed that and agreed that the Secretary of the Interior standards are the way to go. But that's not necessary to actually have that discussion, because I can always say that anyway, because that is what you all believe. So these are some ideas: backs of houses, clad windows, energy efficiency, vinyl siding. If you have other ones, that's too much to talk about at a 3-hour retreat where we've already got half of the retreat accounted for. So give me your favorites or new ones.
I
Sure.
have two. So we talked about, and maybe I don't know, maybe I maybe I'm misremembering, but so there are guidelines for signage? Or so if signage meets the guidelines, is staff able to approve, or is the
Not
signage
at
still coming to
this
us?
point. Right now, staff can only approve replacement signage that's in the same dimensions or smaller.
Okay.
And that, I remember that came up at a meeting once,
Gotcha.
whether
Yeah.
staff should be able to approve new signage
Business signs, yeah.
that meet the guidelines.
Yeah, because I'm,
So.
And what those guidelines
Add
are.
that to the list of
Do we have
possibilities.
the guidelines for them?
because I'm kind of always thinking, if it meets the guidelines, why do we even
Yeah.
have to? I mean, that
Yeah.
to me is the point of the guidelines, is and if staff sees something crazy or something that just doesn't feel right, then.
Right.
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And then I
that's
just have a
good.
general, and maybe this is maybe not necessarily something we have to discuss at the retreat, but maybe
Mhm.
something to think about. So is there any kind of discussion or thought around kind of revisiting the designations and thinking about maybe extending the period of significance for some of the districts?
We haven't had that conversation in at least 10 or 12 years. The last time it came up, I investigated it with the state, and they said, no, you can't change it. I don't remember the particular circumstances of that request at that time, though. If this is something that you're interested in talking about, we would want to go through and look at districts and what buildings it would capture to change the period of significance.
You'd almost have to resurvey.
That was a question, whether, last time, was whether a study committee would be required to change that date, or whether it could just be done through a survey or a new review. Yeah. These are certainly things that I could look into and present to you at the retreat or at a meeting, and try to find out more
I think the
information.
last one was done was Broadway.
Okay.
That's the one was done. And everything came in except the business district. They didn't want to be part of it.
I think the date is a good point of discussion. I think at least something to consider, because I know it's happening.
Right.
Yes.
So it,
For me, kind of the main concern came in, and this was actually even from my first tenure as a commissioner, was kind of seeing some of the mid-century, like post-1941 storefronts, like the really awesome storefronts kind of going away, and it was just like, clearly these are significant, clearly they're historic age, clearly they represent a point in Ann Arbor's history.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like, well, they're not in a period of significance. Like, lose this awesome storefront for like a Cowan-Ear aluminum, and I was just like, ew.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and I don't know how many of those are even left anymore, so maybe
Mhm.
maybe most of them are
That's a
gone
good
by this
point.
point.
Yeah. I don't know that either. Are you more concerned with downtown commercial buildings, or equally concerned with residential and historic districts?
Is mainly the downtown, because like when it comes to residential, I guess I don't see a whole lot of certainly don't see a lot of like, hey, this is a 1950s house that somebody
Mhm.
wants to tear down and it's not contributing, let's whatever.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
a lot of like mid-century elements on houses that are being proposed to be replaced. It was more of like the downtown, like those storefronts that kind of I saw slowly kind of going away.
Well, it wouldn't be a bad exercise to just go through the downtown historic districts and, note the dates of construction and see how many would be captured by moving the date, how many years.
Right.
Yeah, that would be a great thing, a great topic for a retreat. And also maybe timely because we've got someone coming in to shadow for a week on U of M spring break who's looking for projects.
Okay.
And that'd be kind of a fun one.
There you go.
Great. Yes.
Yeah.
Good idea.
I'd do that.
So what do the rest of you think? Now we've got 6 possible topics.
Sorry.
It's okay. It's good. It's
I
good.
like the date. I think the sign is probably a good one.
That would be a quick discussion. That wouldn't take very
Yeah,
long.
yeah.
I think that would be nice to keep out of a meeting too, not to keep it out, but, to not have to talk about it on the clock. Things are warming up again,
Yeah.
it's almost spring, literally and figuratively, it's warming up, and I'm getting a lot of calls. I think I have 4 pre-application meetings next week for the next agenda, which, it may just be 4 applications, but that could mean that 8 show up.
Can we put the clad windows in with that sign guideline as potential staff approvals? I don't know if that.
Yep, okay. So we're going to do potential staff approvals. Signs and clad windows. And then I'm going to add period of significance, end date, movement. If I get done with these and I have enough time within the retreat, is there a third topic that you'd like to touch on? Keep looking at you, Dave, sorry, but.
You can weigh in, Dave. We discuss as a board.
I'll weigh out.
Do we want to just broaden, do we want to do another design guideline for the backs of houses? Or do we want a refresher on our vinyl siding guidelines? I don't know that we need to change them because they're fairly robust. Though.
Well, I think we can discuss it.
I think if there's time, can we put those
That
maybe
can be if
2
there's
on,
time,
and if there's
yeah.
time, we'll look at
That won't
them.
require a lot of research or anything,
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
that's.
just a discussion.
Okay. Okay, vinyl siding. As time allows, okay, thank you. Okay, great. Shall we move on to
Sure.
G2?
Yes, which was the Brown Court and Forest Plaza discussion.
Yesterday I sent out, and you have paper copies at your desk today, of you had, Commissioner Fortner had requested a resolution to create, to recommend to City Council that a study committee be created for Braun Court. And I was supposed to work with several of you who kindly volunteered, and I didn't get it to you in time. So we're going to work on it right now briefly. Or if you would rather have time to think about this on your own, we can revisit it next month.
Well, never mind, I was gonna say do it at the retreat, but this is February, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, I see.
So, resolutions,
fine.
they're always oddly worded, it seems, but, so the first paragraph just describes the buildings. In the packet, there was individual historic properties survey sheets for each of these existing 7 buildings in Braun Court. So there's decent documentation of them already. From the second paragraph in here is just pointing out that Braun Court has historic value and fits in with surrounding buildings. The third paragraph talks about its LGBTQ history, which is, I think, a very strong point. It's not more than 50 years ago that this happened, but I do think that Braun Court, plus all of these activities that have gone on there, make it a really strong candidate for saving, keeping it there to wait around for that 50 years of significance to pass. And then we just have a couple of reminders that the City Council can appoint a study committee, et cetera. And therefore, the HCC respectfully requests that City Council appoint a study committee to research and document the historic significance of Braun Court, and once the study is complete, to weigh the merits of creating a local historic district there. There's no point in saying, dang it, we want you to appoint a study committee. But
You can recommend.
You can't but ask.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we can recommend that. To City
And we
Council.
talked about this a little bit at last month's meeting, though I know that a couple of you were gone. There is a development project that hasn't come in, hasn't been submitted to the city yet, but was fairly far along in the design stage, that sort of lit a fire under this. It's unfortunate that so much historic preservation occurs when a development is proposed, but there you go. And again, this used to be an individual historic property district, so it would just be reconfirming its historic significance, since it already was, Ann Arbor citizens determined once before that it had historic significance.
Isn't it separate parcels, though? How was it an individual?
No, the individual historic properties district had like 50 properties
Oh,
in
and
it.
so even if there were contiguous
These were-
ones within the individual,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
this
Yep.
is not an individual property.
Yeah.
Interesting. So that
Yeah.
whole thing went away.
Yeah, the whole thing. The
So
whole
we
thing.
should say,
So-
here, we should make this a district.
Right, because it could have been
A
Old
district.
Fourth Ward or something.
Yeah.
So are there things that you want to make sure get into a resolution that aren't here now? I realize that I haven't tasked you guys with resolution writing.
No, but it looks good right now.
Is there something in here that says that it used to be in that individual historic district? Because that would be probably
I don't think it says that. And I think
pertinent
it should.
information to include.
I think it should. So at the very end of the first paragraph, the first whereas, we're going to change that comma to a period and add the buildings were previously included in the individual historic properties historic district. I'm going to say between 19 blank and 2001. And I will fill in that blank.
Okay.
Is there anything from that, in that second paragraph, you identify a little bit, just briefly, that it meets the requirements for certain age scale design. I don't know if orientation matters, like the way that it's cited and featured. If there's anything within the language of the previous, inclusion of this within the, like why it was included within the Historic District Commission, if there's any language to add.
I don't think there is.
I don't know if it's
Yeah.
relevant, but I do think, it being a unique configuration within Ann Arbor.
Urban
is important.
configuration.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unique milieu. Muse setting of narrow court running
Yeah, the
between Main
muse.
Street and alley. Houses face court and we're all alike. So I'm going to add that in here. Thank you. Scale, design, materials, and massing, and the court's unique, I'm gonna just go lift this language straight out
Yeah.
of the report here.
Don't need to reinvent.
Unique milieu. What does milieu mean?
Setting.
Okay, okay. Use
Setting.
the, quote, muse, setting of narrow court running between Main Street and alley. Dot, 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 and alley. Okay. That's good, because I wanted more on that paragraph.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution to recommend the creation of the study of the committee for Bronze Court.
Second.
Second. Motion moved by Commissioner White, seconded by Commissioner Fortner. Any discussion from commissioners? No? Commissioner Willis? Ross? Okay.
All right.
Do we need to vote?
Yeah.
All those in favor of the motion, please say yes.
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 All those opposed, please say no.
Thank you. I will clean this up and have it conveyed to City Council. Now, Forest
Thank
Plaza was also on here. There was also a development proposal on that site, which seems to have shifted, maybe a block away. But, so that's not an immediate threat. I wanted to ask you, though, if you were still interested in pursuing that one as an individual historic district, because there is building of tall buildings going on all around it, and it's clearly for sale if somebody was going to buy it and redevelop it. So I think that it would have merit if you wanted me to come back with a history on that one. And we could go through this same process. Okay.
I think seeing the history would be good.
Okay. It's a very cool building. And
Yeah,
it's-
it is.
Yeah,
It really is.
yeah. I'm looking forward to showing you more.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Right, on to item H, approval of minutes.
We
Everyone,
received minutes today,
yes.
and there should be paper copies in your packet, or I have some here if you need them.
There were a couple things I noticed. One of the hearings, I think it was noted the roll call was a 4-0, but there was actually a nay as well.
Oh, I see.
So it's just a typo, I think.
On a roll call, the vote was yeas 3, nays 1. Yeah, so this vote should have been 3-1.
Yeah, 3-1, not 4-0.
Okay, so that was for item F3
Yeah,
on
there
the
it is,
January
yeah.
12 minutes. The vote should have been 3-1. I'm saying that out loud so that we catch
Yeah.
this 3 minutes. All right, anything else?
And
That was
then
a
I
good
didn't-
catch.
Did we need to include anything in here about the discussion, about Forest. About the South Forest apartment building that we talked about last week. I don't know if that's typically included.
Oh, in the minutes?
Yeah, in the minutes.
We didn't really discuss it.
Okay.
I mean, I mentioned it as an item of interest, but since we
Okay.
didn't discuss it, I don't think it needs to
Okay,
be included in here. Thank you,
that
though.
was my only thought. So these, will she,
So would you like to
Just-
approve them as amended?
I think they can be approved as amended. Any objection? Nope.
Without objection.
Right. Sorry, guys. Okay, on to item H. Nope, we just did item H. All right, reports from commissioners. Is there a commissioner that has any reports to share? Nope. On to item J, assignments for Monday, March 6, 2023 at noon for the Thursday, March 9th meeting.
I'm in.
All right.
Just see, March.
March 6th.
Okay, Beverly says she's in.
Okay.
Thank you, Bev. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Sure.
On to item K, reports from staff. Reports.
No new reports from staff.
What's your-
Oh, wait, I have a report from staff. I'm so sorry. The Hayden House Historic District was created by council on Monday night.
Yay.
Thank you to our
Excellent.
two committee
Yes, thank
members
you.
there.
Congratulations.
It went over, it went so smoothly that I was just stunned that there were no questions, there were kind words spoken. It's great. It's
The community reaction in Lower Burns Park and just in general has been phenomenal.
great.
Fantastic.
That's great.
Great.
That's great. I saw that there was an M Live article today or yesterday about it. I haven't heard much else, so I'm glad to hear that people are talking. And I think it's phenomenal, so thank you.
I work with Tim Osborino. He hasn't even said anything about it. So he's that modest, I guess.
Well,
Nice.
tell him I said thank you when you see him next.
I will.
Yeah, it was a little bit anticlimactic for Tim because, he writes the report, goes through all the committee meetings and everything, and then it gets to city council and he's like staff, so we're on Zoom. And then no one even wants to talk to us. So, but it's all good because it got passed and that's all that matters.
Fantastic.
So, thank you.
On to item L, concerns of commissioners. Is there a concern a commissioner would like to share? Commissioner Rock?
I have a curiosity, I suppose. Just reflecting back on the public hearing from earlier in the meeting, and also speaking of M Live, was reading an article about 415 West Washington this morning, and just curious if there's any update that we know about that is pertaining to the Historic District Commission regarding 415 West Washington.
It will be here next month for a working session.
Okay.
On March 9th.
Okay.
As you heard from other commenters, it's moving. It was at City Planning Commission on Tuesday night, and there was a long public hearing. So, but that was, I'm not even sure, I'm not even sure if they voted on it on Tuesday night. If they did and voted, if they made a vote, it will go to City Council next, but it has to be approved by the HDC first. So they'll give us an update on where they are in the process, what's happening. You all will get a chance to see a new set of drawings and react to them. And I would encourage you to stick to the standards and guidelines and make as many comments as possible. Anything that may be bothering you, because we're really, really hoping that by keeping them coming back here for working sessions, that we can avoid having a disaster when the final plans come in and having y'all say no. I'm not ruling that out because you never know with an application what's going to happen. But the more feedback and information that we can give them now, the better, and the easier it will be.
So do we know what their
presenting as their current plan? Is it what we last saw?
I don't think it's the same. And in fact, I don't know. This is just a massing stage again.
Yeah.
We still won't know materials. We still won't know windows. There are two parts of it. One is the PUD zoning and an area plan. And then the more finished version is what you guys will see, where they actually have, full-on materials instead of just conceptual massing. And, well, we're going to put the building over here and the parking over there.
There were issues.
There were issues.
lots of
Yeah,
issues with it.
yeah, there were issues. So that's why they're coming back again in March, now that they've, advanced another step of the way. And that'll be an interesting discussion.
Okay.
Oh, and I guess if at all possible, not like, staff or the commission can tell them how to put together their presentation. But it would be great if they can, watch the last sessions that we had with them and actually speak to the individual concerns that we brought up and if they address them or not.
Yeah.
Because one thing, I can't necessarily be expected to remember everything that all of us said. And if there is this thought that, okay, this is leading up to them generating a final product that there will be no surprises on, you need to understand that they are addressing all of our concerns, or at least most of them, or which ones they're not addressing. And,
Would it make sense to ask them to do that, but to also have me put together sort of a punch list or a memo or something of, hey, just as a reminder, you should watch the video, and these are some of the highlights that we hope you've addressed before the working session in March.
Yeah, I mean, whatever, I feel like whatever is easiest for you, for staff.
Yeah.
I mean, not to say literally, hey, if you meet all these, then you get an approval, because at the end of the day, this is just a discussion.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I've been on these sessions where, whatever they're presenting is not meeting the standards, but I'm sitting here and they're like, what do you think? And I'm like, all right, I'll tell you what I think, but it doesn't mean that at the end of the day,
Right.
I'm going to vote to approve this, because you're coming, typically, I feel like these sessions are folks that, they know they're not meeting the standards. So it's just that kind of hey, I want to tenderize you for the grill, So I'm like, all right, So, yeah. But it would be great for them to kind of have that ready. So it's like I said, I can't remember what I said to these guys.
Yeah. That's an excellent point. And I'll also have them put together something that can go in the packet so that you have some information in advance to look at, making it slightly easier than just getting it cold.
Yeah.
Right.
Starting over.
Yeah.
I remember a couple points, and I guess something that you could tell them that would be really helpful is what I want to see is the worst. They show the best view a lot of times, particularly this building. They kept showing the best view, and they would have opaque trees, nice trees, good rendering, but if you're going to put the trees, make them transparent and show me the worst case scenario view of this is the house and this is the elevation behind it. We need to see that. If we don't see it, then we have to imagine it, and we're going to imagine a bad worst case scenario. So show us the worst case.
Yeah, and I think you could specifically say it's that view from Third. Pushing that big building up to those houses.
Right. I think that was one of the things that was discussed initially, was that we need to see what this actual view is, what this streetscape is here, but also on every single block.
Right,
We need
exactly,
that
from every
understanding.
direction, not
Yeah.
just one direction.
The pretty one.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
from
not
the
just
person's
pretty
view, not aerial.
Yeah.
It's we're not the client, so it's just sending us the most awesome clip art and these, well, that's not what we're looking for. And
Right,
we really want to
exactly.
see the context. We want to see the old buildings. Typically, it's white all that out and focus on this. And it's no, we want to see all the stuff you're whiting out. That's our job.
Right.
So, that's a good point,
Yeah.
for sure.
Okay. No. Let's see. see, where are we? Any communications?
Nope.
All right. Adjournment. I now adjourn the February 9th, 2023 Historic District Commission meeting.